Another thing is that there were 2 bottles of diphenhydramine, which is the ingredient of Benadryl,
Hmm.
diphenhydramine sleeping pills. And the capsules were squeezed out. You can see the bottles in the crime scene photos, and you can see the capsules squeezed out on the floor. You can see the detective sweeping them up, and there was diphenhydramine in his system, a high level. They said, but not considered to be toxic. But they don't know that because they never established the timeline. So they
Right.
can't determine the half-life without, they can't say, okay, if he had this level, but he was down for 4 days, then it was actually an extremely
Amount.
high
Yes.
level.
Yep. That put him
And
out.
they, yes, and they
Yep.
never checked into that. The medical examiner ends up, so then what happened with the case was, so after the male detective did the search warrant on the phone, interviewed her, waiting to get the search warrant back. He said he would call me. He never did. This was right before Christmas. So I said, okay, well, maybe it's the holidays, but I am anxiously awaiting
Fucking
to hear about this search warrant.
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Yeah, didn't hear anything back from him. So finally, I asked my husband to call, and they said he was promoted and put in traffic. And the case has now been handed over to the female detective who had said that he was doing meth.
Right. Great.
So great. I have a couple of meetings with her. And then she tells me that they found synthetic marijuana in Brandon's apartment. And I said, well, like, still, I don't have anything from the case file. All I know is my son. And I said, well, if you did, it didn't belong to him, because I know that he wasn't doing drugs. He was very concerned about, working. And even my daughter told me a story that he went to like a small group party and they were smoking weed and they offered him some, and he said, no, don't even get the secondhand smoke around me, because I don't want to
Job.
come up hot on a
Right.
job.
Hmm.
And so I knew that, that wasn't happening. And I told him, I said, well, if you found something like that, it wasn't his. And I know that he was not doing any of this. And I didn't even know anything about synthetic marijuana. So I had to learn after she accused that. And then I realized, okay, it's like a totally different thing. I asked some friends, a very close friend, and she told me, she said, there's absolutely no way Brandon would do synthetic marijuana because of his chemical background, knew how dangerous it
Right.
was. She said, there's absolutely no way he would do that. And another thing about them trying to say it was synthetic marijuana, so I do some more research, and everything I find out about synthetic marijuana is that when there's these cases of people acting very just really
Crazy.
out there, just crazy
Yes.
things
Yes.
happening. It's usually a rash of people. It's not one isolated case, but it's like a bad batch.
Hmm.
So you will see like multiple people being affected.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, so you're saying Brandon took this synthetic marijuana. So later I get the evidence log. There's no synthetic marijuana collected. The search warrants, there's no synthetic marijuana. The male detective never said anything about any drugs or anything.
Hmm.
I think they put on the search warrant, they collected a marijuana scale, but in fact there's no such thing as a marijuana scale.
No,
There's
it's just a
only
scale.
such thing, it's just a scale. It's just a scale, and some
God.
people use a scale for marijuana, but
Right.
Brandon was a chemist, and
So
he
he would have a
also,
scale.
yes, and he was also a bodybuilder. He also did some of his own supplements where you can, pack your own, things like
Right.
that. But
Right.
there was nothing that indicated this synthetic marijuana. Um, there was, and I was like, okay, so who was the drug dealer? Where did he buy it? Like,
Right.
where is your evidence of saying this? Well, then the female detective literally calls the medical examiner and says this without presenting any evidence, and says that they found synthetic marijuana and he took this synthetic marijuana and this is why he's beat himself, without providing any evidence. The medical examiner amends the autopsy to say that he purportedly took this substance
Wow.
and never asks for any proof from the detective. And although the tox screen had come back clear, and the state toxicologist said that they check for thousands and thousands of compounds, and that I could feel pretty safe to say that he did not have synthetic marijuana in his system, they do a second toxicology, and they specifically test for synthetic marijuana, and there's none detected.